Hello everyone, welcome back to Movie Recapped Girl. Get ready to uncover the universe's biggest secret hidden inside a common household appliance in the incredible mind-bending sci-fi tale, Love, Death and Robots Ice Age. A young couple settles into their new flat. So Rob, the hubby, is lugging some boxes into their new pad when Gail, his wife, gives him the lowdown about this old-school fridge in the corner that their landlord didn't bother to move. Rob thinks it's pretty cool, pointing out how the engine is on top, not like today's fridges. He points out that it's weird to put the motor at the bottom since hot air goes up, so it just heats up the fridge. But Gail isn't really listening. She just nods along to whatever Rob says. Next, she pulls out a bottle of wine and checks with her hubby if he's up for a drink. Rob's all hyped up and pops open the ancient fridge to grab some ice. Even though the freezer is jam-packed with frost, he still manages to squeeze out a tiny cube of ice. Then the couple gives a quick cheers to their fresh start together. Just as Rob was about to take a gulp from his drink, he spotted something in the ice. He pulls it from the glass and shows Gail, asking her to confirm what's frozen in the ice cube. Gail takes a closer look and is just as shocked as her hubby. To double-check her observation, Gail grabs a magnifying glass and takes a closer look at the ice cube. Shockingly, there's a tiny mammoth with spears in its body on the inside. Gail is curious if there's more stuff like this in the freezer, so she decides to check it out. She quickly empties it out and is stunned by what she finds. So Rob takes a look and says, "Man, there's an ancient city lost in this fridge." Sure thing, there's a tiny, fully functioning medieval city in the freezer. Everything's buzzing inside, with the tiny folks just doing their daily stuff, totally not bothered by the two big guys hanging around their city. Gail can't believe what's going on and says it doesn't add up, and Rob's right there with her. She then makes it clear that what they're looking at is a city from the early Middle Ages. When the woolly mammoths went extinct way back in the late Neolithic period, Rob just brushes it off and plays along with his wife to cover up that he doesn't know much about it. Later, Rob goes ahead and sticks the frozen mammoth in a pot filled with dirt. Rob looks bummed, so Gail tries to cheer him up by saying it'll probably be great plant food. Their curiosity gets the best of them, so they decide to take another peek in the freezer. They were shocked to see that everything was totally different. So this old-timey medieval city has pretty much turned into a new and improved spot in the Industrial Revolution. They're building factories and railroads everywhere, and all the smoke's blocking out the sky. The couple realizes they've only been away for 10 minutes, but for the tiny folks, it's like decades have passed. So, Gail thinks that time in the freezer runs differently. Rob's bummed out that they zoomed through the Industrial Revolution so fast and totally skipped over the Renaissance era. He spots two tiny guys chilling by a building that's being built and wonders if folks think they're gods or something. But really, the guys are just mocking them, thinking they're just strange faces up in the sky looking down at the city. One guy even says he's had enough of seeing broccoli stuck in Gail's teeth. Just a few moments later, they put up some fancy new buildings. Rob sees some stuff zooming in the air, and Gail tells him it's just airplanes. Gail thinks that as more tall buildings pop up, the tiny folks have finally caught up with today's era. Rob backs this up when he spots a Starbucks and mentions how these coffee shops just seem to be everywhere. Right then, he spots something odd and decides to check it out. Out of the blue, a missile drops smack in the middle of the city and blows up. The blast is so bright that Rob can't see, and he stumbles backward, landing hard on the floor. Gail gives him a hand and tells him to chill out, but Rob flips out, yelling that there are mini nukes going off in their freezer. But Rob's face is super red, and Gail is trying hard not to crack up. When the freezer goes boom with giant nukes, Gail gives her hubby a sparkly toaster. He sees his face glow red from the blast's heat and its reflection. Rob lets out a moan, but then he spots that things in the freezer have taken a turn for the worse. The couple looks on as they hear people screaming, guns firing, and stuff blowing up. So Gail shuts the freezer and says there's no way folks can just quit fighting in a few minutes. After listening to this, Rob's like, "So, what's the plan?" And Gail's answer is just, "Let's get some pizza." That night, the couple just kicks back with some pizza for dinner, waiting for things to simmer down. An hour's gone by, and Rob suggests they take a look in the freezer. He's wishing that the tiny folks could have fixed up their city, but Gail softly breaks it to them that they might not have pulled it off. Even so, Rob just heads over to the freezer and pops it open. They were shocked to see the freezer light up, with glowing cities and cars that could fly. Gail says it kind of looks like the Emerald City, just not as green and with more high-tech gadgets. Seeing this sends Rob over the moon, amazed at how gorgeous everything looks. All of a sudden, a building pops up in front of him, and Rob cracks a joke about it looking like a sex toy. Suddenly, things get crazy, and a huge pyramid pops up smack dab in the middle of this high-tech city. It lights up big time and sucks the juice out of the bridges it's connected to. In the end, it shapes up into a diamond-like fort and swallows the entire city before it explodes into a burst of energy. The room lights up like crazy as beams of light zip around Rob and Gail's kitchen, making their whole apartment glow. They're both totally captivated by the amazing light. So it looks like these tiny folks have cracked the code on traveling through time and space. So after that, the light beams shoot back into the freezer, bundle up into a ball, and then they're gone. This totally kills the vibe for Rob and Gail, who are just baffled by what they've just seen. Rob is curious if the tiny folks will come back, but Gail doesn't think it's going to happen. So Rob sadly unplugs her fridge, kind of like he's given up on those little guys ever coming back. Seeing that Rob's really taken a liking to the tiny folks, Gail gives him a comforting hug. She shuts the freezer and figures it's time to call it a day. The following day, Rob makes some coffee for both of them and gives a cup to Gail. Without a single word between them, they both can't help but think about that tiny society living in their freezer. Hoping that the tiny folks are still kicking, they pop open the freezer again, only to find frosty air gushing out, even though it's not plugged in. Once they get inside, they see another ice age going on, where early humans are eating a huge brachiosaurus. Looks like life in the deep freeze is back on track, just like in the dinosaur days. Right then, a loud roar tells everyone that the T-Rex is here. The humans bolt when one of them gets snagged in a dino's choppers. The last human stumbles around with a T-Rex hot on his tail, ready to make its move. Lots of people say the freezer is like a mini world that shows how life changes until it doesn't seem real anymore. Some might say that the freezer was the end of the line for the tiny folks, but maybe they just discovered a new place to call home. We're not really sure how often stuff came to life in that old freezer, or if it always happened the same way. The old owners probably saw stuff come and go so much, they got tired of it and just left that crazy cool freezer behind. Even though the show didn't tell us who made life inside the freezer, an episode called God's Serengeti by Oat Studios might give us a hint. There's a bunch of elephants crossing a field, but get this, that field's actually on a table in some mystery guy's office. The old guy doesn't notice because he's too caught up in his book. His butler Jeffrey checks in on how he's liking the book, and the guy says it's a bit too hard to follow, saying that he's more into chaotic stuff. He still enjoys the black hole recipe from the book. He starts watching the tiny creatures in his pocket universe, chuckling at a small guy who's trying to start a fire by rubbing two sticks. All of a sudden, the guy figures out how to make a fire, and the old dude gets super mad. He's upset because he didn't give those folks permission to do that, since he's the one in charge of the fire. Jeffrey realizes they're more than 200,000 years too early to hand over fire. So, the old man tells Jeffrey to put out the fire, and the butler does it by blowing on the table, which makes enough wind to kill the flames. But the old man is still pretty mad, and he tells Jeffrey to put them back in their caves. The butler does as he's told, and gets the elephants to charge at the people, making them run for cover. Once it's all over, the grumpy old man is still ticked off about what went down, so he decides to make those little creatures even smaller, so they can't make decisions on their own. Before you know it, the humans are out of the cave again, doing their rain dance. Jeffrey points out they still haven't watered the plants, so the old guy tells him to give the dry little dudes a good soaking. Jeffrey gladly does, as told, splashing water all over the table, which makes it look like it's raining on the field. He mentions how their god is kind while the humans are celebrating. The old guy chuckles seeing how thrilled they are, so he tells his loyal butler to splash more water around. As Jeffrey gets to work, new plants start popping up in the small field. At last the old guy gets tired of messing around and tells Jeffrey to let the plague loose. The butler is unsure, but the old guy is dead set on calling it quits with this silly game. Jeffrey has no other option, so he opens up an old box and grabs a cool-looking bottle from inside. Looking worried, Jeffrey sprays this stuff around, and people start dropping like flies, one after the other, taking their last breaths. The old dude just peeks over his book at all this, then goes back to his reading. This creation story shows God as both forgiving and strict. As he gives water to the thirsty critters on his table, he also kills them in a heartbeat when he gets bored of seeing them. So both Ice Age and God Serengeti, from Love, Death, and Robots, have their own takes on what God-like creatures look like. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more incredible stories like this one, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. I'll be back with another video soon.